VocalEye Almost Live Zoom. Vigil, hosted by Amantea, with special guests Michael Shamata, Glynis Leyshon, and Eileen Barrett.
Welcome to this VocalEye Almost Live event. My name is Amantea. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Associate Director for VocalEye. I'm your host for these Almost Live events, and I'm a member of the blind community, and always very proud to say that I'm a member of this community. And a big shout out, big thank you to all of those folks who have made donations, those who have supported VocalEye. Please continue to support us. And if you don't have capacity to make financial contributions, that's totally okay. You can do what a lot of you have done, which is write some letters, share us about the impact that the programming makes. I read all of them. We all read all of them. And we very much appreciate those testimonials. It helps us share with our funders the impact the programming is making on the community. If you happen to be watching this particular Almost Live event on our YouTube channel, we would love for you to hit like and subscribe. VocalEye is broadcasting to you all from the traditional and stolen lands of the Coast Salish people, in particular the Squamish, the Musqueam, and the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. So I was doing a little bit of research and listening to some other land acknowledgements over the past little while, and one of the things that was coming up for me was this term that we often hear in land acknowledgements. Sometimes it goes a little bit like honoring Indigenous peoples who have stewarded these lands since time immemorial. And the term time immemorial for me was like, not actually sure what that term means. I could guess at it, or I could educate myself as to what that means. So I did a little bit of research, and I wanted to share some stuff with you. So time immemorial, which I've learned means before official contact with white folks, with settlers. So that was before the 1790s. So anything before the 1790s is considered time immemorial. So then as I was researching what time immemorial meant, a little oral history popped up about some Squamish folks. And I thought I would read to you what this oral history says. So here's the story. In the 1770s, smallpox eradicated at least 30% of the Indigenous population on the northwest coast of North America, including the Squamish peoples. This disease was one of the most deadly that hit the region. In oral histories, those that survived, it describes this 1770s epidemic. So in 1890, an aged informant of the Squamish people related the history of this catastrophic illness to an ethnographer. His name was Charles Hill Tout. And he wrote, "A dreadful misfortune befell them. One salmon season, the fish were found to be covered with running sores, with blotches, which rendered them unfit for food. But as the people depended very largely upon the salmon for their winter's food supply, they were obligated to catch and preserve them as best they could to store them away for food. They put off eating them until no other food was available, and then began the terrible time of sickness and distress. A dreadful skin disease, loathsome to look upon, broke out upon all alike. None were spared. Men, women, and children, sickened, took the disease and died in agony by hundreds. So that when the spring arrived and the fresh food was now procurable, they had given their lives for the renewal and the rebirth of the salmon. Their numbers then started to regain. During this decimation, camp after camp, village after village was left desolate, the remains of which, said this old man, are found today in old campsites or midden heaps, which are where the forests overgrow the remains of these folks. And little by little, the disease grew into a nation one more. And when the first white man sailed upon the Squamish in their big boats, the tribe was strong and numerous again. And that's an oral history of recounted by an aged informant and to somebody who was documenting this oral history. And the person who documented it was Charles Hill Tout. So I love these little oral histories. It's a way of communities explaining things that happened. And the more I read about some of these oral histories and where the mountains came from and where the waters came from, they're really beautiful. So I look forward to being able to share some more of that with you as we continue this journey. Welcome, friends. Again, December the 7th, 2027. It's another Wednesday, and here we are in space again. And we're proud to offer you our Almost Live event number 104. 104, I said it. This is Vigil. And before I introduce what Vigil is, maybe I'll introduce our special guests who are standing in the virtual wings. That's Michael Shamata. We got Michael with us. And Glynis Leyshon. Have I got Glynis and Michael in my square? I do. I have you in my squares. Thanks, friends. Welcome. Michael, you've been with us many times, but Glynis is new to us in this space. So maybe I'll give Michael just a little opportunity to just say hello and reintroduce yourself as the artistic director of the Belfry Theatre.
Thanks, Amy. Well, it's a great pleasure to be here again. I love these events, and I'm so excited that everyone's going to get a chance to experience this beautiful play in this beautiful production that Glynis has created for us.
Thanks, Michael. So Glynis, welcome to the space. Really excited to have you.
It's great to be here.
Maybe you can do a little introduction. I mean, I could read your bio, but I always like to hear it from the person. I mean, we're also humble when we introduce ourselves, aren't we? But you're the director.
So Canadian.
Oh. I know, it's so Canadian. Actor, director, performer, creator. I mean, whatever titles you want it. But in the context of Vigil, what was your role with Vigil?
Well, Vigil's been a part of my life for a long time.
Yeah.
I was actually the artistic director of the Belfry Theatre when it premiered in 1995, with Morris directing it, Morris Panych, the writer, and his life partner, Ken McDonald, doing the sets. So that was an amazing event. And then a few years later, about 10 years later, I was the artistic director of the Vancouver Playhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, I think it's time for a revival of Vigil. It's an extraordinary play. By then, it had played all over the world, literally all over the world in many different languages. But I thought a revival was due. And so I was happy to bring it to the Playhouse audience. This time I directed it and Morris Panych acted in it, which is a slightly horrifying idea for any director, I think, really, truly, to have not only the writer of the play in the play, but somebody who has himself directed it with huge success over many productions. So, but it turned out to be an exhilarating experience. It was a production that was picked up with Dean Paul Gibson from Barrett on the Beach. Dean then took over the role of Kemp, and we did it as guests of Dennis Garnham at Theatre Calgary. So it's been a big part of my life. And then a happy moment when Michael phoned and said, we're really thinking about reviving Vigil. Oh, yay, that's great, fantastic. And this time with two actors who I've known and admired in Nicola Lippman and Anton Lipovetsky. But this time, not actors I'd worked with. So that's exciting too. It's a whole adventure, a whole new adventure.
I love that. The creative community here is quite small.
Yes.
So often you find that there's a lot of people that So what a unique experience to work with actors that you've not had a chance to work with.
Yeah, no, somebody, I've known Nicola as a superb performer for a long time, but we've always just I've hosted productions, she's done that kind of thing. But this time I had the great privilege of working with her as an actor. And Anton, it was Michael that introduced me to Anton's work at a production, a co-pro with the Belfry and Bard on the Beach. Tell me the title again, Michael. I always get it wrong.
Equivocation.
Equivocation. I always want to say expedition. I don't know. Anyway, outstanding performance. And I'm going, oh, who's that young actor? And happy days that he was available to do this show.
That's always super exciting. And I think, you know, something that's going to be new for our listeners tonight is that this particular performance, roughly 90 minutes, does have an intermission. And we'll probably do roughly a 5-minute intermission. But explain to us why the intermission.
Do you want to take that, Mikey, or?
Oh, do I? Well, I think there's a number of short scenes, and I think and there's quite a marked passage of time that happens through the play, and I think the intermission just kind of it marks a, what would you say, Glynis? Does it mark a change? It marks a,
yes, it does. Yeah. I don't want to give away too much with this play, but I will say that Kemp, the nephew of the older woman Grace, is Grace is a silent character through Act 1, except for the very last moment of Act 1. And of course, that shift in dynamic informs and changes, and very much, I think, reflects the deepening relationship they have in Act 2. I also think, to be honest, it was also, this play is not a new play, and the idea of intermissions were much more de rigueur. In fact, we used to have 2 intermissions very often with plays. Oh yeah. So I think that's one of the things that more and more we're experiencing it as we would film, as a one arc, a single arc. But when a playwright very specifically writes a play in 2 parts, I think it's best to pay attention.
Yeah. I think absolutely right. I think as a I don't want to call us a modern day audience, but we often, you know, the one act play is like a one and done. There's no intermission. We sit through the 90 minutes, we do the thing. But I think as a theatrical tool, maybe, if that's the right language to use, that sometimes the placement of the intermission is part of the storytelling in a really important way.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably what I'm about to experience.
I hope.
Vigil. That's the vibe I'm getting from this. But just to give our listeners, our audience, a heads up that is coming. And during our intermission, we'll have our describer Eileen Barrett. And if folks have any questions about anything that's been described, we can take some of those questions. If not, Eileen and I know how to fill 5 minutes of space, right? We'll honor the playwright's wishes to have the intermission. Any last words, comments before we jump right on in and hit play?
Well, as always, I'm delighted in whatever form, whatever medium of reaching out with a story that I think is as powerful. I hope you find it as amusing and funny in its dark way. But I also, I think it's been particularly noticeable in audiences now, how touching, how moving, how profoundly we all need to find human connection, even if you're as twisted and misanthropic as poor old Kemp clearly is in his inept way. I think the reaching for the heart is why this play of Morris's has stood the test of time.
Right, human connection. We're always seeking that. All right, friends, you're going to join us back for the Q&A at the end of Vigil. So I look forward to spending time and space with you again.
Right.
For now, I'm going to invite our audience to just sit back and enjoy. And a reminder that there's an intermission approximately 47 minutes in. So this is Vigil.
Due to copyright restrictions, this feature presentation has not been recorded. Please check below for more information, including links to the material if it is hosted elsewhere.
That was Vigil. All right. Whew. Gather my thoughts and my emotions here after that. Let's welcome Michael, and we'll welcome Glynis, and we'll welcome Eileen back into the space. Friends, I don't know what to say because I did not expect that to be the twist. That it wasn't his aunt.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that. So that was a real comedic twist for me. Have we got Glynis with us?
You know what? I'm having trouble getting my video started. Unable to start video. You can't start your video because blah blah blah. Start my video.
Oh dear.
There you are.
There I am. Okay, good.
There we go. That's why you weren't spotlight, because without a video we can't spotlight. Now we got everybody in the space. We're all good.
I still get choked up.
I know.
It really does. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
The power of human connection. I mean, Glynis, you started right at the top suggesting that. And I think the moment that got me like emotionally was this idea that he came back. And then at the end when he says, why can't we all just die at the same time? Then we don't have to watch. Oh, okay. Here we go. I mean, I guess I could ask the obvious, but are there favorite moments for any of you in this? Eileen? Michael? Anyway, yeah, Michael, go ahead.
Go ahead, Eileen.
No, go, Michael, go. Michael, go.
I love when he says there should be somebody here with you, and she says there is. I find that just amazing.
Yeah.
Eileen, for you?
Well, Michael stole one of my favorites. Well, it's a funny moment, but I love when he's, when he talks about, he's going on and on about the gift, and she just pulls the little package out and just holds it up to him, and he turns into this 6-year-old kid. Like, yeah, she's everything he needed and he didn't know. So that's one of many favorite moments. Yeah.
And Glynis, for you, I'm sure it's hard to pick a favorite moment because you're so close to this, but
yeah. Oh, there, every time, and I have seen it now so many in so many incarnations. It just I love the way Morris he allows us to have that moment and understanding of Kemp and understanding of his deep love for Grace, but he's still going to cheat at Go Fit. And there's something that both make, I always laugh in that section, always, but it also I laugh, and I that's the trigger for me, because he's trying so hard to keep her with him. And that's a trigger point for me, I think.
There are lovely moments and lots of lovely moments, but that moment that you talk about, Glynis, reminds me of my childhood with my grandparents, as we were sitting playing cards, and how my brother used to cheat, and we didn't think anybody was noticing, right? Because we were so sly at like 8 years old. Nobody was going to see this, and my grandfather knew every moment of every cheater McCheaterson that happened in that space, and said nothing about it. Just gave us, oh my God, okay, no, can't go further.
That's part of it.
Oh yeah, a lot of it. And having had my own grandmother pass in April, I feel kind of sad because I hope she wasn't alone.
Yeah.
Whew. All right. How has this show changed? Glynis, you talked about it from 1990.
Oh,
has it changed in any way? Has the script ever been updated? I don't know. Has it changed in terms of
there's been
directed? Yeah,
it's interesting. There's been some tweaks. Morris, we're doing what was the second version of the printed text, and he folded in a scene. So the scene you might remember in Act 1, the big laundry scene, he comes in the nightgown. you had challenges, making sure the audience understood what was going on there, Eileen. That scene was followed by the taking down of the laundry scene, but Morris folded it into one. So we had fun this time, sort of saying, well, I didn't want to do a blackout with crew coming on and taking off the line. So then we started to develop, well, could we make it, he takes it down, well, would it be dry? So the hair dryer, and finding a period hair dryer that Grace would have in the house, all of fun like that. Also a few more, the vigil, as I call it, the vigil sequence where Grace is waiting to see if he will return and is knitting the sweater, completing the sweater for him. That was done in the same sort of vignette style blackouts, but gradually we've got, I think we've done an arc where it's all, it didn't necessarily read with stage lighting, but there's always lights on through that passage where you hear that wonderful music by Puccini, but so much of the music and so much a part of it by brilliant composer Tobin Stokes here in Victoria. And he was very much a part of the weaving. So we tried to not do as much of the harsh blackout idea and keep it more fluid and more alive that way, I think.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody wants to speak to the power of, or the role of, lighting and sound as part of the storytelling. Because I think sometimes we forget about, especially myself as somebody who's blind, and I'm missing out on some of these things on a regular basis, not remembering that, oh yeah, the lights are also telling a story. Anybody want to speak to that? Michael, you want to speak to that? You can all speak to that.
Well, we had a brilliant lighting designer named Luc Prairie from Montreal, and from Quebec. No, Montreal. He's in Montreal.
Yeah. He's in Montreal.
And there's so much passage of time and so many different seasons and nighttime and daytime and all of that. So Luc really, I think the lighting in this is just, I think it's spectacular. Mm-hmm. Plus that set that Ken created is such a crazy, I wouldn't say a blank canvas, but it's such a great structure for Luc to work with. And he did something I've never seen anyone do before, but there's molding all around the top of the set, which I don't think we saw tonight really with the camera, but he actually managed to light the molding all by itself so that it just glows at times. It was quite incredible.
Wow.
Super interesting, because the way Eileen describes it, I get this picture of Grace as a young woman in this house, right? The things that she would have had, like that she might have been a seamstress or somebody who was involved in, so then you got this old mannequin form in the corner and the collection of a life's collection of things.
Oh, that's so great, because that's so much what Ken wanted. He wanted that as her life got smaller, all her belongings and accumulated belongings had moved from the house into this one room, into this one space.
Yeah.
I love the steamer trunks, because the steamer trunks really give us that sense of, journeys not taken or journeys taken that she's taken that he hasn't had a chance to take yet, that are the literal building blocks of parts of her room. And just, we see a steamer trunk and we go, there's a story inside that trunk. Yeah, it was just beautiful. And the music, the score, I just found, as you're going along, well, especially going along and describing it, that just even the mood, because you're always trying to find a mood to convey, just the way that mood changed and enhanced he's so brilliant, the way that it scored.
Did an amazing job. It was huge. I mean, you do start to going in, go, as you said, a two-hander, and oh yes, and la la la, and then all of a sudden you go, oh my God, you're doing Titanic all of a sudden. What's going on? Because you want to finish one scene, but then you want to take the mood, and what does summer feel like, spring feel like, what does autumn feel like? So
But-
to try and give the seasonal passage of time.
But also they're changing relationship too, and that
Absolutely.
lightness of the quality of the, now we're having fun together, and it's just beautiful. And I know how musical a person you are, Glynis, so I kept thinking, yeah, she's a good witch that way. It really, it just adds so much to it. And then you hit us with Puccini, and it's like, just stab it in here and carve it out.
Sort of the greatest waiting for something to happen music ever written, I think, and certainly an opera. So yeah.
Was your process, Glynis, as a director for this, like, do you invite actors to participate in that process? And if so, how do you hold space for all of that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we'd be ridiculous to have brilliant actors and then go, okay, well, what I think we should do is blah, blah, blah.
You'd be
blah,
surprised.
blah.
I think there are some directors out there like that, but
no, a good room, a healthy giving rehearsal room is a place of collaboration. I mean, that's a cliche that's beyond a cliche. It's a truth. And we were faced with challenges during this.
Really, Glass?
Oh my God.
oh, do tell. This feels like an insider.
Well,
knowledge.
we had the brilliant first day, and we're bathed with the glow of a really good reading, and the chemistry is so interesting already between Nicola and Anton, and then Anton tested positive for COVID.
Oh no.
So yeah, so we're
second day of rehearsal.
We're trying to rehearse on Zoom with a wonderful actor here in Victoria, Evan, stepping in bravely so that we can at least physicalize the show in some way. And it sort of never really, it kept going on because Anton went into, did the stay away, and I'm going to say hibernate, but that's wrong. He anyway did that. But when he came back, he still wasn't really 100%, and he was worried about a rebound. It didn't, and it wasn't, but it turned out to be, he was not in great voice, and he carries all the lines. So it was one of these struggles, and I can only thank the lucky stars that they were the company they were, and that we all kept our wits about us and managed to have a run just before first preview.
And yeah, with COVID being a reality, and we're, what is it, close to 3 years, and it's still a reality. It's going to be with us.
Yeah.
For now that in these fall seasons and these winter seasons we go through, COVID being a changing variant, and the flu and all of those kinds of things. Do theater companies, does the Belfry, are you prepared with like understudies and backup actors to come in and take roles, or do you just shut a show down? Ooh, that was a stutter.
Well, I mean, last year we did 4 shows without any incident of COVID.
Yeah.
And so and then this year felt like we were, further away from it. But I can't remember whether when we did intimate apparel with this, right? With VocalEye, did we not? Yeah. And we lost 9 performances to COVID with intimate apparel, which was a real financial hit. So then for the very first time in Belfry history, we had an understudy that, as Glynis alluded to, we hired Evan Frayne to stand by, thinking, well, it's a 2-hander, and so this is one time when we can probably afford, well, not necessarily afford, but it's going to be the one that we if Anton's out, we're really in trouble. So and Glynis was unofficially standing by for Nikki.
Thank God.
And as Glynis said, having Evan allowed Glynis to keep working for that week that Anton was off right off the top, with Anton watching on Zoom while Glynis blocked the show with Evan and Nikki. So whether we can afford, I don't know that we can afford to keep doing that. Theaters don't have the budgets for understudies, but it's it's certainly something we're considering for the next show somehow to have somebody on hand.
And this one has quite a lot of blocking that is a part of the storytelling. So sometimes, understudies don't necessarily have the privilege of having been in the rehearsal room to know where all the blocking is. Or if you have to just say to an actor, here, take the script, go on stage and just do it. All of the blocking with the suicide machine and stuff. And
it was very physical show.
Yeah.
That's indeed part of the trauma that Evan went through. It's enough just to read the script, but in fact to carry in a tray and snatch a tray and pick a spoon and lift the salt, and that's just in one tiny section. You can imagine the laundry scene. I think he would have had anyway. It was complicated and almost impossible to do with book in hand. So it does present enormous challenges to everyone, this situation, because it's funny, the opera company in town, Pacific Opera, went through exactly the same situation with the leading man of Carmen. They needed someone to come in, and I sat there. That performance, I happened to be in the audience and saw somebody walk on, and after a day do the staging and did so well. But it isn't the same thing. It's just, it can't be. It's not, and it's unbelievably difficult on everyone, the audience, because you're worried you're nervous, you want it to be okay for the person, but also you could see the colleagues, oh, this way, oh no, okay, we're going this way, all right, we are. That you would know that, Eileen, I'm sure you know that situation. And it just we're reminded afresh how fragile what we do is. We take it so for granted, but we should never, and not now, ever take it for granted.
Well, and I think COVID was the reminder of that, but let's be honest, we're humans, so sickness can happen in any way. People, families can be sick. Stuff happens when we are not expecting it to happen, and when it's the least convenient for it to happen in our lives. And then it's like, okay, now we got to figure something out.
Well, and I think a very skilled playwright actually put that in his play, didn't he? It's inconvenient. It's inconvenient for your aunt to be dying. It's inconvenient for you to die right now. So
not an amazing speech when he comes back and he talks about the bank and how moved he was to be part of that fiduciary trust and the family there. And it's, once again, that's what he's so, Morris as the writer is so good at. Just that fine line and finding the humor, but finding the heart of that lost boy. That poor boy, that wretched mother.
Right on. Friends in our audience, if we have any questions for Michael or Glynis or Eileen, or any thoughts about tonight's performance, anything that resonated, now's your time. And we got a hand already. We got a hand from Lori. We got a hand from Louise. So let's go to Lori first.
Audio now unmuted. Crystal to show.
First, I want to say this was a very. I enjoyed the whole play and all the laughter in it. When he finally realized that he was in the wrong house, I just sat here and just laughed the whole time and everything. To go a whole year realizing he's in the wrong home.
Good.
Okay, and stuff. But it's a very good play and really well done. And I thought it was so sweet when he goes to brush her hair and everything, when she's, there in the bed and everything. So, he had a lot of heart for her, but also a lot of humor with the shock machine.
Yep. Thanks, Lori. Lori's joining us from California, by the way.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
There you go.
Yep.
Hand now low.
And Louise.
Well, okay, I have to say, this is not just a story, it's reality in its own way. you know, he walks in and he's bitter and he's upset with himself and upset with her for living so long as each season went, bitter at the world, bitter at him, bitter at his parents, especially his mom. The stories he told, you could hear the sadness in him, like, no one's ever treated me and cared for me, never one's ever appreciated me, no one's ever, you know, you felt for him. And the first few times he spoke to her was like every time there was something about her death. It was like there was always something about her when she went. You know, we got to talk about this, we got to talk about that. You know, his whole manner was like, I'm here only because I have to be. You know, and he kept looking over and seeing the window and the woman in the window at the other house across the street. And when he realized that that was his aunt, not when she died, and he looked, I felt like he was looking at the other woman in the bed, like the woman he had been taking care of. I thought he was going to strangle her for a second. I felt like he was going to say, why didn't you tell me? I could feel it in his body language. Something you, Irene said that just made me feel like his body language was like, God damn it, why didn't you tell me this? And then when he came back and they became friends, it was like, though the friendship was there all along, he didn't realize it, that someone finally cared about him. He felt so lost in this world. And then he was going to take her on a trip because he cared to do that. You know, and I was like looking how to do it even when she was dead. I was like, this tells me
something
what?
that you said about that in the first half, like he was there because he felt obligated to be there, and then when he comes back, it's because he wants to be there.
Be there, yes.
Because they had developed that relationship, yeah.
And it's like, and when he got that sweater, you could feel the emotion in his. You know, the change of his voice, the way he spoke, though he still was not a happy person, there was a change in his attitude. You could feel it in how he shared himself, especially when he was going to pack her up and take her away.
I think that's the denial, right? No,
yes.
You're not really gone. We're doing this thing. No.
No, yeah, I was like, I'm not going to let you go. You're the only person who cared about me. You're the only one who gave me a reason to live. Even though he was mad at her for 90% of that time or more, he still loved her.
Thanks, Louise. Right. Very, very observant, as always. You are.
I just really hope he takes care of the amaryllis as well, too. I hope he's got a good place for that amaryllis, because being a person who is the notorious plant killer, I would hope that, you know.
Can you give us a bit of a description of what that plant looks like?
An amaryllis is an absolutely beautiful bulb. It usually has one or at two stalks, and they're just glorious. I mean, if you had to say, think of a lily, think of maybe a Casablanca lily. They come in many colors, reds, pinks, but this is a white amaryllis. And they just open. They're beautiful and pure and incredibly affirming, because they are associated with winter and December. And
so you were able to actually find an authentic one because it wasn't out of season.
That's right.
But it's in the bulb.
And I have done it when it is out of season, and it is troublesome. It's
But it's in a bulb. So for anybody who knows flowers, then you hope that it's gonna blossom.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's what I love about these events so much. I learn so many things.
And as a bit of theater trivia, of course, Amaryllis is the name of the little girl in The Music Man.
So she is.
Eileen always brings us a little bit of some kind of nugget of trivia on something, and I love that. I love it. Does anybody know what's next for this particular play? You know, Glynis, you started off by saying that it had traveled all over the world.
It has. I think it's a play that is being revived. Not necessarily. I think this is a major revival in Canada, given the length of time. But it appears, it is in the repertoire for companies, and there's always, it has been optioned as a film, and who knows.
All
but
right.
It's been optioned a long time, as Morris
Okay,
said.
so let's play a little dream world. If it was a film, Glynis,
Yes.
who would you cast as these two characters?
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's tough. Well,
I'm gonna ask you all this
the
question.
two actors that you saw tonight, but I'm sure Hollywood would probably have other ideas. That's interesting. I would say Judi Dench, maybe. And if I did that, if it was a sort of an Englishy cast, Kemp, interesting. Simon Russell Beale, he might I don't know. So I think it's neat that it's like Anton, a little bit older, like genuinely more in the 40s than older. So who would you cast, Mikey?
Oh, well, Streep could do Grace. Yes. If it wasn't, but I think Judi Dench is probably a better choice. Maybe Ewan McGregor.
Oh, interesting. Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Or Colin Farrell. That's another.
You know what? So interesting how his work has, as he's matured and so on, and not just a very handsome man. He's a real actor. So yeah.
That's what I do. I do Colin Farrell and Judi Dench. That's what I do.
Was it one of Louise who was from California?
Laurie's from California. Louise is from here in Surrey.
It was done in San Francisco, and it was Olympia Dukakis, who you might remember from Olympia Dukakis played Grace. It was done at ACT in San Francisco.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
I don't know, Eileen, would you have a dream cast if you could cast?
In
the Hollywood world?
No, I would love to keep it Canadian, I think.
Yes.
That's just because it's ours.
Because it's ours.
Because it's ours. So yeah, and I don't know. I like I said, I'd watch Nikki Littman do anything, including sit in a chair. So I would
read the good old telephone book back in the
yeah. So yeah, or another favorite actor of mine is, and I know he's actually done it at one point. I think Anton is brilliant in this part. Alan Zanuck as well too is another.
Wow.
Another.
Nice. And of course, speaking of Canadians, there was a production with Martha Henry and Brent Carver. So that would have been evidently it was an amazing production, but not Morris directed it. It was a tough rehearsal period because they both had little tiny dogs that brought to rehearsals. Morris said it was more about, little, I can't remember their name. Little Button, you go over here. Oh no, Button. And he said it was less about let's do the play occasionally. But they're eccentric and brilliant and wonderful actors. So
wonderful. I heard now, Michael, was it an interview that Morris did with you? I know I read it somewhere when I was doing research on this, that he said something about coming back to do this play. He used to make all the jokes about people of a certain age, and it was from a distance, but now that he and Ken are the age and all the aches and pains and everything that Grace has, they have. So it's become much more poignant and much more identifies with one character much more than the other character now.
Absolutely true. Yeah.
I did find an old interview with Morris. I was looking for something to include in something that we send to subscribers, and he was saying, oh, someone said, do you ever want to write something different? He said, well, sometimes I think about writing a love story. He said, but I don't really think that's really my area. And then he said, although, when you think about it, my play Vigil is a love story, which
True.
was, beautiful to hear.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, friends, we've come to the last moments of our time together, and it's been such a pleasure having you all in the space. But before we officially say goodbye, we have a prize draw that we have to do. And I know we invited Glynis to do a prize draw. So, Glynis, are you ready? If we bring in
Yes.
Donna?
I hope I know what to do.
You do indeed. So we got Donna in the space. Donna, I'll put you in Glynis'
Hi, Donna.
hands.
Nice to see you,
Hi.
Donna.
Nice to see you. So Glynis, super easy. I've got names in a bag. I'm just going to shake them around. I'm shaking already. Whenever you want, you say whatever word you want, and I will pull a name.
Amaryllis.
Amaryllis. And it is Kathy Stuckenberg.
Kathy's won a prize. Congratulations, Kathy. We'll make sure we email you to connect you with the prize. It's like a connect the dots kind of thing. So we'll do that offline. Thank you so much, Michael, Glynis, Eileen. Thank you so much for joining us in the space and sharing Vigil with us. It was a beautiful piece.
Yeah.
I feel really privileged to be able to have witnessed that. So.
And
Well,
I
thanks for
wanted to
including
say
us.
a special round of applause to your work, Eileen. It was amazing. It was amazing. It was just there and took
One of our greats.
It was fabulous.
Thank you, Glynis. It was an honor to work on this one. It really was.
VocalEye, vocaleye.ca. Special thanks to our funders, the Canada Council for the Arts, the British Columbia Arts Council, the Province of British Columbia, and the City of Vancouver.